Sometimes the most ordinary appointment becomes the moment that changes your entire future forever. That was exactly what I believed had happened on a quiet Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago. My name is Nathan Brooks, and routine had always been the safest part of my life. I was 27 years old, an elite Omega working as a senior biotechnology researcher, and my calendar rarely contained surprises. My annual medical examination had been scheduled nearly 3 months in advance. I planned to spend less than an hour at Lakeshore Medical Center before returning to my laboratory, where an important presentation waited on my desk. I even joked with the receptionist that my biggest concern was whether I had been drinking too much coffee during another week of impossible deadlines. She laughed, handed me a clipboard, and reminded me that everyone said the same thing before routine blood work. Nothing about the morning felt unusual. The waiting room remained peaceful. Soft instrumental music drifted through the speakers while sunlight reflected across polished floors. Families sat quietly, nurses moved confidently through the hallways, and doctors greeted patients with familiar smiles. I completed the standard examination, answered every medical question honestly, and allowed the laboratory technician to collect several blood samples before thanking everyone and expecting to leave within minutes. Instead, nearly 45 minutes later, a nurse returned with an expression that immediately caught my attention. She asked whether I could remain a little longer because one of the physicians wished to review my results personally. That had never happened before. I followed her into a private consultation room where Dr. Emily Carter greeted me with professional courtesy, yet something about the way she carefully organized the paperwork in front of her suggested she was choosing every word with unusual care. She looked at the laboratory report once more before finally meeting my eyes. "Nathan," she began gently, "we repeated one of your tests because the first result seemed impossible." I smiled politely, convinced a sample had simply been mislabeled. "Did someone switch my paperwork?" She slowly shook her head. That was our first thought. My confidence faded. Then what happened? She folded her hands together. "Your second sample produced the exact same result as the first." The room suddenly felt much quieter than before. I waited for her to continue, expecting news about stress, vitamin deficiencies, or exhaustion after months of non-stop research. Instead, she took a careful breath before speaking words I never imagined hearing. "Our laboratory findings indicate that you are pregnant." I stared at her without responding. My mind refused to process the sentence. "That cannot be correct," I finally whispered. "Please run every test again." Dr. Carter nodded immediately. "We already ordered additional confirmation. I wanted to speak with you before the next results arrived because I knew this would be difficult to hear." My heartbeat accelerated while countless questions rushed through my thoughts. There had to be an explanation. A laboratory error. A technical malfunction. Something scientific that could be verified and corrected. Before either of us could continue, a nurse quietly entered the room carrying a tablet computer. She leaned toward Dr. Carter and whispered something so softly I could not hear the words. The physician's expression changed almost instantly. She glanced toward the large window overlooking the hospital entrance, then back at me. Curious, I stood and looked outside. One after another, sleek black luxury vehicles rolled through the front gates and stopped in perfect formation near the main entrance. Hospital staff paused to watch as professionally dressed men stepped out with calm discipline instead of urgency. None of them entered the building immediately. They simply waited. Dr. Carter slowly lowered the tablet and spoke in an even quieter voice. "Nathan, there is one more detail you need to know before anyone else reaches this floor." I turned toward her, my hands trembling slightly. She looked at the confidential genetic report that had just appeared on her screen before saying the sentence that made the room seem to stop moving altogether. "The father's genetic profile has been identified, but his identity is protected under the highest level of restricted medical security." Dr. Emily Carter kept the confidential report on her tablet instead of turning the screen toward me. Her hesitation alone told me that whatever she was reading could not be explained with an ordinary laboratory mistake. I slowly sat back down, trying to steady my breathing while convincing myself there had to be a scientific answer. I had spent years working in biotechnology. I believed in evidence, controlled testing, and reproducible results. I want every sample tested again, I said calmly. Use a different laboratory if necessary. Verify the equipment. Repeat everything. Dr. Carter nodded without disagreement. That has already begun. We collected a third blood sample 15 minutes ago, and another laboratory is processing it independently. A faint sense of relief crossed my mind. If 2 laboratories reached different conclusions, this nightmare would end before lunch. Just then another physician entered carrying a sealed electronic tablet. He greeted Dr. Carter before looking toward me with professional sympathy. The independent laboratory completed the priority analysis. Neither doctor spoke for several seconds. Dr. Carter finally accepted the tablet, reviewed the information, and slowly closed her eyes. The third analysis matches the first 2. My hands tightened around the chair. Then tell me exactly what the report says. She took a careful breath. The pregnancy markers are confirmed. The genetic profile is also confirmed. My voice became quieter. Who is the father? Dr. Carter hesitated. That information is encrypted under the highest level of federal medical privacy. Even I cannot access the identity directly. She touched several security prompts before a restricted information page appeared. Most of the record remained hidden behind authorization barriers, but one line was visible to attending physicians. Genetic source classification, Moretti Family Registry. Neither doctor needed to explain what that meant. Nearly everyone in Chicago had heard the Moretti name, although very few people actually knew the family behind it. They controlled international businesses, charitable foundations, and private security companies while avoiding public attention whenever possible. Rumors connected them with enormous influence, but facts were difficult to separate from speculation. Before I could ask another question, voices echoed outside the consultation room. The hallway remained orderly, yet hospital employees were quietly gathering near the windows overlooking the main entrance. I walked toward the glass and saw the same line of black luxury vehicles waiting outside. The passengers had not rushed inside. Instead, they stood patiently beside the entrance while speaking respectfully with hospital administrators. Everything appeared organized, almost rehearsed. Dr. Carter joined me beside the window. Hospital administration just informed us that representatives from Moretti Holdings requested an immediate private meeting regarding a confidential genetic record. I looked at her in disbelief. They already know? Apparently someone within the protected registry received an automatic notification when the genetic identification was completed. My thoughts raced through every possible explanation. I had never met anyone from the Moretti family. My research career centered on biomedical innovation, not organized corporations or powerful private organizations. Nothing made sense. Suddenly my own cell phone vibrated across the consultation table. The number was unfamiliar. Against my better judgment, I answered. A calm male voice spoke with remarkable courtesy. Mr. Brooks, my name is Marcus Reed. I represent Mr. Damien Moretti. Please remain where you are. Mr. Moretti is on his way upstairs because he believes both of you deserve the truth. Before I could respond, the call ended. I slowly lowered the phone while staring at the silent screen. A few moments later the consultation room door opened once again, but this time it was not a doctor or a nurse standing there. A tall man wearing an impeccably tailored black suit entered with composed confidence, his silver-gray eyes meeting mine immediately. Without introducing himself, he looked toward the confidential report resting on the table, then back at me with quiet disbelief before speaking a single sentence. I came here to investigate a data breach, not to discover that someone says I am going to become a father. The room remained completely silent after the stranger finished speaking. His calm voice carried no anger, only genuine confusion. I studied the man standing near the consultation room door. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, wearing an impeccably tailored black suit that reflected quiet authority rather than unnecessary wealth. His silver-gray eyes remained focused on the confidential report resting on the table before they returned to me. Dr. Emily Carter finally broke the silence. Mr. Moretti, thank you for coming so quickly. He acknowledged her politely before answering. I would have preferred receiving this notification under very different circumstances. He turned toward me and extended his hand. My name is Damian Moretti. I accepted the handshake automatically. His grip remained steady and respectful, without any attempt to dominate the moment. Nathan Brooks, I replied. Damian released my hand immediately. Mr. Brooks, I believe both of us deserve the same explanation because I have never met you before today. I nodded. Neither of us should be standing in this room discussing something that appears medically impossible. Dr. Carter opened the secure genetic report once again. That is exactly why we requested additional confirmation from 2 independent laboratories. Every result remains identical. Damian looked toward the encrypted medical file. Explain the genetic match. Another physician entered carrying a portable genetic analyzer that had completed the latest verification. He connected the device to the secured hospital system before displaying several scientific charts. Both biological profiles are authentic, he explained carefully. There is no evidence of identity fraud, sample contamination, or laboratory error. Damian frowned slightly. Then how could my genetic material appear in a medical record connected to someone I have never met? The physician enlarged a timeline displayed across the screen. We searched archived laboratory activity over the previous 12 months. One event immediately stood out. Dr. Carter leaned closer. 3 months ago, both genetic profiles entered the same secure research database within 17 minutes of each other. I immediately recognized the project identifier displayed beside my employee credentials. That was during the National Regenerative Medicine Symposium, I said quietly. My company presented experimental tissue preservation research. Damian looked equally surprised. Moretti Biotech sponsored the genetic security demonstration at that conference. The physician nodded. Both organizations voluntarily submitted anonymous reference samples for equipment calibration. According to the audit log, the automated sequencing system briefly experienced a synchronization failure before engineers restored normal operation. I stared at the screen while my scientific training pieced together the possibilities. You are suggesting our biological records crossed during a calibration error? We are saying the timing deserves investigation, Dr. Carter answered carefully. Nothing has been proven beyond the documented system malfunction. Before anyone could continue, the hospital information technology director entered carrying another encrypted tablet. His expression appeared unusually serious. Someone attempted to remotely access this patient's complete medical record less than 5 minutes ago. Damian immediately looked toward Marcus Reed, who had quietly entered the hallway moments earlier. Marcus spoke into a discreet communication device before calmly replying, Our cybersecurity team confirms the intrusion did not originate from Moretti Holdings. The information technology director continued. Whoever attempted the breach specifically searched for the prenatal genetic file and nothing else. I felt a chill despite the warm consultation room. Until that moment, the impossible pregnancy had been a deeply personal mystery. Now someone outside the hospital was actively trying to obtain information about it. Damian remained remarkably composed. Lock every electronic record immediately, he told the physicians. No external transfers. No printed copies. Restrict access to essential medical staff only. Dr. Carter agreed without hesitation. Those measures are already being implemented. Just then every computer monitor inside the consultation room briefly flickered before returning to normal. A single notification appeared across each secured screen at exactly the same moment. No hospital logo accompanied the message. Only 7 simple words filled the display. The child belongs to the future, not either parent. Every monitor inside the consultation room displayed the same unsettling sentence before the screens returned to normal as though nothing had happened. The hospital information technology director immediately disconnected the secure network while technicians rushed to isolate every affected server. Dr. Emily Carter looked at the darkened monitors with visible concern. No patient information should have been accessible from outside this building, she said quietly. Marcus Reed was already speaking through a secure communication device, coordinating with cybersecurity specialists from Moretti Holdings. Damian Moretti remained remarkably composed despite the growing uncertainty surrounding the situation. He turned toward me instead of the computer screens. Nathan, before anything else happens, I need to ask you one question. I nodded cautiously. Have you ever participated in any private genetic research outside your company's official projects? I answered without hesitation. Never. Every study I joined followed federal research regulations, and every biological sample remained anonymous. Damien acknowledged my answer with a slight nod before looking toward the physicians. Then someone manipulated the system long before today. The hospital information technology director returned carrying several printed audit reports because the internal network had been temporarily shut down. We found another irregularity, he explained. Approximately 3 months ago, someone with senior administrative privileges entered Mr. Brooks's medical file after normal business hours. The access lasted only 4 minutes. Dr. Carter immediately frowned. Who signed into the system? The director looked uncomfortable. According to the records, Dr. Leonard Hayes. The room became completely silent. Dr. Carter slowly shook her head. That cannot be correct. Why not? I asked. She answered quietly. Dr. Hayes retired 6 weeks before that login occurred. Marcus accepted the printed report and carefully examined every page. Either someone stole his credentials, or someone deliberately wanted investigators to believe he accessed the file. Damien remained focused on the evidence rather than speculation. Where is Dr. Hayes now? The information technology director lowered his voice. He passed away 2 months ago following a brief illness. Another unexpected dead end appeared before any real answers had been found. I stared at the audit report while my scientific instincts searched for patterns instead of coincidences. If someone altered my medical file using a retired physician's credentials, I said thoughtfully, they expected the deception to remain hidden forever. Dr. Carter agreed. Which means today's routine examination accidentally exposed something that was never supposed to be discovered. Before anyone could continue, a young nurse entered carrying another sealed laboratory envelope marked priority verification. She handed it directly to Dr. Carter, who carefully reviewed the document before looking at both Damien and me. The newest analysis includes developmental measurements. My heartbeat quickened again. What does it show? She answered calmly. The pregnancy did not begin recently. I waited for the exact number. Based on every biological marker available, the estimated development is approximately 12 weeks. I silently counted backward through my calendar. 12 weeks earlier placed me at the National Regenerative Medicine Symposium where the mysterious calibration failure had occurred. Damien reached the same conclusion almost immediately. Exactly the same conference, he said quietly. Marcus suddenly received another encrypted message through his communication device. He listened carefully before turning toward Damien. Our investigators found additional surveillance footage from the symposium. Damien looked up. What did they discover? Marcus placed a tablet on the consultation table. The paused video showed the restricted laboratory where anonymous biological samples had been processed. Most researchers moved normally through the room, but one individual wearing standard laboratory clothing briefly stopped beside the automated sequencing equipment and connected a small electronic device before walking away unnoticed. The face remained hidden beneath protective equipment, making identification impossible. I looked at the timestamp displayed beneath the image. It matched the exact 17-minute window when both of our genetic records entered the same system. Damien studied the footage without taking his eyes from the screen. That was never a laboratory accident, he said quietly. Someone planned this long before either of us knew the other existed. Damien Moretti kept his eyes on the surveillance image for several long seconds before carefully placing the tablet back onto the consultation table. The room remained silent as every person present realized the same unsettling truth. Whatever had happened 3 months earlier had never been an accident. Someone had deliberately brought 2 complete strangers into the same scientific experiment. Marcus Reed quietly received another encrypted update through his communication device before looking toward Damien. Our cybersecurity division has finished tracing the hospital intrusion. Damien folded his arms. Did they identify the source? Marcus nodded slightly. Not the individual, but the network signature matches a private biomedical consortium that officially dissolved 4 years ago. Dr. Emily Carter looked genuinely surprised. That organization no longer exists. Marcus calmly replied, on paper, no. Digitally, someone has continued using its encrypted infrastructure. I listened carefully while trying to connect every new piece of information. My entire professional career had been dedicated to ethical biotechnology research. Every project required oversight, documentation, and strict regulations. Yet the evidence now suggested someone had secretly continued experiments outside every legal framework. Dr. Carter gently placed another medical report before me. Nathan, I would like to perform a portable ultrasound examination. I agreed immediately. Several minutes later, the softly illuminated monitor displayed the earliest images of the pregnancy. Dr. Carter carefully completed every measurement before smiling with visible relief. Everything appears healthy. Development is exactly where we expect it to be. For the first time since the impossible diagnosis, I found myself looking at the screen instead of the laboratory reports. The tiny life shown on the monitor transformed the situation from a scientific mystery into something deeply personal. Damien remained respectfully several feet away, allowing the medical examination to proceed without interruption. When Dr. Carter completed the scan, she quietly invited him closer. You should see this as well. Damien hesitated for only a moment before stepping beside the examination bed. Neither of us spoke while the monitor displayed the steady rhythm of a tiny heartbeat. The room became unexpectedly peaceful despite everything happening beyond its walls. No matter how this began, Dr. Carter said gently, this child deserves protection above everything else. Damien slowly nodded. I agree. Before anyone could continue, Marcus received another urgent communication. His expression remained controlled, but his voice became noticeably more serious. Boss, our investigators searched archived financial records connected to the symposium. Damien looked toward him immediately. What did they find? Marcus opened another encrypted report. Someone anonymously funded a classified research initiative called Project Genesis approximately 6 months before the conference. My attention immediately shifted to the project title. I had never heard of it before. Marcus continued. The funding moved through several charitable foundations before reaching an independent genetics laboratory that officially closed shortly after the symposium. Carter quietly examined the attached documents. Every principal investigator listed here resigned within the same month. I looked at Damien. Does Moretti Holdings appear anywhere? Marcus answered before Damien could speak. No. Your employer and Moretti Biotech both unknowingly contributed anonymous calibration samples to the symposium, but neither organization funded Project Genesis. That answer eliminated the possibility that Damien had orchestrated any part of what happened. For the first time since meeting him, I realized he was searching for answers just as desperately as I was. Suddenly another notification arrived on Marcus's secure device. He read the message once before handing the screen directly to Damien. Damien's composed expression changed for the first time that day. The investigators recovered one final file from the abandoned research laboratory, he said quietly. I watched as he turned the screen toward me. Across the top of the recovered document appeared a date from 6 months earlier. Beneath it, in bold confidential lettering, was a project authorization already listing 2 biological subjects before either of us had ever attended the symposium. Subject A, Nathan Brooks. Subject B, Damien Moretti. Status, pairing approved before initial contact. The confidential document remained on the tablet while every person in the consultation room silently absorbed its implications. My own name and Damien Moretti's name had been linked together 6 months before either of us had ever entered the same building. Nothing about that could be explained by coincidence. I looked toward Damien, expecting disbelief or suspicion, but instead I found someone searching for the same answers I wanted. I have never seen this document before today, he said calmly. If someone approved this project using my genetic profile, they did it without my knowledge or permission. I believed him. His surprise had been too genuine to imitate. Marcus Reed immediately contacted Moretti Holdings' Internal Investigation Division while Dr. Emily Carter carefully secured every printed report inside a locked medical case. The Hospital Information Technology Department disconnected all external communications related to my medical record, leaving only isolated internal systems available for essential patient care. Even with those precautions, nobody in the room believed the situation had become safer. It had only become more complicated. Dr. Carter quietly reviewed the latest ultrasound images one final time before speaking. "Nathan, physically everything continues progressing normally. Your blood pressure is stable, the pregnancy measurements remain consistent, and there are no immediate medical concerns." Her reassuring words allowed me to breathe more easily for the first time all morning. Damien looked toward the ultrasound image resting beside the laboratory reports. "Whatever happens next, medical care comes first." Dr. Carter nodded appreciatively. "That should remain everyone's priority." Marcus returned several minutes later carrying another encrypted tablet recovered from Moretti Holdings' private archives. "Boss, our research division found one surviving employee connected to Project Genesis." Damien immediately looked up. "Is the individual still in Chicago?" Marcus shook his head. "No. She resigned 5 months ago and entered the Federal Witness Protection Program after reporting irregularities within the research network." I felt another question forming. Did she explain what those irregularities were? Marcus opened the report. According to her sworn statement, Project Genesis officially studied genetic compatibility between anonymous Alpha and Omega volunteers. Unofficially, someone redirected the project toward unauthorized reproductive experimentation. The room became completely silent again. Dr. Carter slowly removed her glasses. That would violate every ethical standard in modern medicine. Marcus continued reading. She also testified that 2 participants were selected because independent algorithms predicted an extraordinarily rare genetic compatibility. Their identities remained encrypted, and even senior researchers were never allowed to know their names. Damien quietly looked at the authorization document once more. "Until today." Just then my own research instincts noticed something everyone else had overlooked. I carefully examined the project authorization date printed across the recovered file. "Marcus," I said thoughtfully, "this document was approved 6 months ago, but the symposium happened only 3 months ago." Marcus immediately understood why that mattered. Meaning whoever organized the project already possessed both genetic profiles long before either organization submitted calibration samples. Dr. Carter looked genuinely surprised. Then the symposium was never the beginning. It was simply the first opportunity to activate whatever had already been planned. Damien slowly nodded. Someone had access to both of our confidential biological records long before we ever walked into that conference. Before anyone could discuss the implication further, another secure message appeared on Marcus's communication device. He listened carefully, then looked directly at Damien with unusual concern. "Our investigators located the witness from Project Genesis." Damien asked only one question. "Is she willing to testify?" Marcus answered quietly. She agreed to speak only after learning that Nathan's pregnancy had been discovered. I stared at him in confusion. How could she already know about my medical results? Those records were locked down less than an hour ago. Marcus lowered the device slowly before repeating the witness's exact words. "She said there was never supposed to be just one pregnancy. Nathan Brooks is simply the first participant whose child survived long enough to be detected." Marcus Reed lowered the secure communication device, and the room became completely silent after repeating the witness's final sentence. I felt every scientific assumption I had relied upon throughout my career begin to collapse. If I was truly the first successful pregnancy connected to Project Genesis, then other innocent people had unknowingly become part of the same experiment. Dr. Emily Carter quietly closed the medical file and looked directly at Damien Moretti. "This situation is no longer only a medical case. It is evidence of organized scientific misconduct." Damien nodded without hesitation. "Then our first responsibility is protecting Nathan and the child before we uncover everyone responsible." I expected him to begin issuing orders immediately, yet instead he turned toward me. Nathan, I will not make decisions for you. You deserve the right to choose where you go and whom you trust. His answer surprised everyone in the room, including Marcus. After everything that had happened, Damien still respected my choice above his own authority. I took a slow breath before answering honestly. Running away will not solve anything. Whoever planned this already knows I exist. If I disappear now, they will continue searching. Damien studied my expression for several seconds before giving a small nod. Then we faced this together. For the first time since we met, the conversation no longer felt like two strangers caught inside the same crisis. It felt like two people choosing the same direction despite not knowing what waited ahead. Dr. Carter carefully completed another brief medical examination before placing the portable ultrasound beside the examination bed. Everything remains stable, she said reassuringly. The heartbeat is strong, and there are still no signs of medical complications. Hearing those words changed the atmosphere inside the room. The investigation suddenly seemed less important than protecting the tiny life quietly growing despite every secret surrounding it. Marcus received permission to establish temporary security around the maternity department without disrupting normal hospital operations. Professionally dressed security specialists entered the building individually rather than as a group, blending naturally among visitors while remaining close enough to respond if necessary. Their calm professionalism attracted almost no attention from patients or staff. A few minutes later, another secure call reached Marcus. The witness has agreed to speak through an encrypted video connection, he announced. Damien immediately accepted. Within moments, the conference monitor displayed the blurred image of a middle-aged woman whose face remained intentionally hidden under federal protection protocols. Her voice sounded tired but steady. If you are seeing this message, then Project Genesis has already failed. Damien introduced himself politely before asking the question everyone wanted answered. Why were Nathan Brooks and I selected? The witness answered without hesitation. Neither of you was chosen because of status or wealth. The algorithm identified an extremely rare biological compatibility that researchers believed could produce a unique genetic profile. The project leadership ignored every ethical warning after discovering your combined data. I felt another question forming. Did anyone inside my research company know? No, she answered immediately. Your employer and Moretti Biotech both submitted anonymous calibration samples in good faith. The theft happened months earlier when someone secretly copied protected genetic records from multiple national research databases. Marcus quietly recorded every statement while Dr. Carter listened carefully beside him. Damien remained completely focused. Who led Project Genesis? The witness slowly lowered her head. I never learned the real name. Everyone answered to a single encrypted identity known only as Director Orion. Before anyone could ask another question, the video connection suddenly froze for several seconds. When the picture returned, the witness looked frightened for the first time. Listen carefully, she whispered. The project never ended. Someone inside Chicago still has access to every surviving participant. The screen immediately went black. At the exact same moment, every light inside the consultation room briefly dimmed before the hospital emergency power system activated, and Marcus's secure tablet displayed a newly received hospital employee identification badge belonging to an active researcher currently working only 3 floors above us. Marcus Reed immediately enlarged the hospital employee identification badge displayed on his secure tablet. The photograph showed a calm-looking research specialist wearing an ordinary laboratory coat, someone who could have walked through the hospital corridors without attracting a second glance. According to the personnel record, the employee had worked at Lakeshore Medical Center for nearly 4 years, specializing in genetic data management. Dr. Emily Carter stared at the screen in disbelief. I know this researcher, she said quietly. He has always maintained an excellent professional reputation. Marcus carefully compared the badge with information recovered from Project Genesis. His employment history began only weeks after the classified research network officially disappeared. Damien Moretti remained calm as he considered every possibility. Appearances are no longer reliable. We proceed with evidence, not assumptions. I silently appreciated that answer. Too many innocent people had already become trapped inside a conspiracy built on hidden identities. Dr. Carter suggested an alternative. Instead of confronting him directly, let us verify whether his current hospital credentials have accessed Nathan's medical record. The information technology director immediately began reviewing the internal security logs. Within moments, a detailed timeline appeared across the monitor. Every authorized physician who had treated me appeared exactly where expected. Then one unfamiliar entry caught everyone's attention. The researcher had opened my confidential genetic profile exactly 43 seconds after the pregnancy results became available, despite having no medical responsibility for my care. Marcus quietly looked toward Damien. That access alone violates hospital policy. Damien nodded. But we still need proof that he acted intentionally. Before anyone moved, the information technology director received another automated alert. He has just logged into the genetics archive again from Laboratory 7 on the 10th floor. Marcus calmly activated a secure communication channel with his investigation team. No confrontation, Damien instructed immediately. Observe only. I do not want patients or hospital staff placed at risk. His decision surprised me again. Despite possessing enough influence to fill the building with security personnel, he consistently chose the safest path for everyone involved. While Marcus coordinated the surveillance operation, Dr. Carter performed another brief medical examination using the portable ultrasound. The familiar heartbeat echoed softly through the consultation room. She smiled reassuringly. Everything remains healthy. There are no signs of distress. I felt a quiet sense of relief as I watched the monitor. Whatever mystery surrounded this pregnancy, the child remained completely unaware of the chaos unfolding beyond the examination room. Damien stood nearby without interrupting the medical evaluation. Thank you for continuing to monitor Nathan so carefully, he told Dr. Carter. She answered with a warm smile. Every patient deserves that level of care. Several minutes later, Marcus received live updates from investigators positioned near Laboratory 7. The researcher never entered the genetics archive, he reported thoughtfully. Instead, he walked directly into an unused conference room carrying only a tablet computer. Damien frowned slightly. Show me the surveillance feed. The secure video displayed the researcher placing the tablet on a conference table before leaving the room almost immediately. No meeting occurred. No one else entered. Marcus enlarged the recording and noticed a small indicator light flashing beneath the device. He left something behind intentionally. Rather than sending personnel into the room, Damien requested the hospital bomb detection and electronic safety specialists to examine the unattended equipment according to standard security procedures. Several minutes later, the specialists confirmed the tablet contained no dangerous materials. It held only one encrypted video file waiting to be opened. The recording began automatically after secure authorization was granted. A masked individual appeared against a plain background with a digitally altered voice. If Nathan Brooks and Damien Moretti are watching this, the figure said calmly, then you have already learned about Project Genesis. What you still do not know is that neither of you was ever the real objective. The child is the only successful result we were trying to create, and someone much closer to both of you has been protecting this secret from the very beginning. The masked figure disappeared from the monitor, leaving only a silent black screen reflected across the consultation room. No one spoke immediately. Every revelation throughout the day had overturned another certainty, yet this final message introduced an even deeper question. If someone close to both Damien Moretti and me had protected the truth from the beginning, then trust itself had become the final mystery. Marcus Reed quietly disconnected the video before preserving every encrypted file for investigators. We will authenticate the recording before drawing conclusions, he said calmly. Damien nodded in agreement. Facts first. Assumptions help whoever created this situation. His composure steadied the room. Instead of allowing fear to dictate our next decision, he remained focused on protecting the people standing beside him. Dr. Emily Carter carefully completed one last medical examination before closing the portable ultrasound. She smiled with visible relief. Nathan, your condition remains stable. The baby's development continues exactly as expected, and every measurement looks healthy. Those simple words carried more comfort than every scientific report surrounding us. I looked at the printed ultrasound image resting beside the confidential documents and realized that, despite every conspiracy, one undeniable truth remained. A new life was quietly growing, completely innocent of the choices adults had made long before today. Damien stepped closer, stopping only when Dr. Carter signaled that the examination had finished. He looked at the ultrasound photograph for several quiet seconds before speaking. Whatever Project Genesis believed it was creating, this child is not an experiment. I met his eyes and answered without hesitation. This child is a person. For the first time since we had met, we completely agreed without needing further explanation. Marcus received one final communication from Moretti Holdings' Investigation Division. The federal authorities have officially secured every remaining Project Genesis database, he reported. Most archived files were recovered intact. The surviving researchers have begun cooperating with investigators, and the anonymous funding network has been permanently frozen. Dr. Carter slowly released a breath she seemed to have been holding all afternoon. Then no additional participants should ever experience what Nathan did. Marcus nodded. That is our expectation. Damien turned toward me instead of celebrating the investigation's progress. Nathan, everything that happened today began without your consent. Nothing that happens next will. Whether you return to your research career, continue your medical care here, or accept any assistance from me will always remain your decision. His words mattered more than he probably realized. Throughout the entire day, he had never treated me as property, never attempted to control my future, and never allowed his influence to replace my own voice. I smiled for the first time since entering the hospital that morning. Then my first decision is simple. We protect this child together while allowing the truth to follow its proper course. Damien extended his hand once again, just as he had during our first introduction hours earlier. This time the gesture no longer felt like two strangers meeting inside a hospital consultation room. It felt like two people choosing responsibility over fear. I accepted the handshake. Outside the large hospital windows, the line of black luxury vehicles slowly began leaving the entrance one by one. They had arrived because of confusion, uncertainty, and unanswered questions. They departed carrying something entirely different. Hope. As the final vehicle disappeared beyond the front gates, sunlight filled the consultation room, and the tiny heartbeat echoed softly once more through the portable ultrasound speaker. Neither of us had walked into Lakeshore Medical Center expecting our lives to change forever. A routine examination had uncovered an impossible secret, exposed an unethical conspiracy, reunited stolen truths with those they belonged to, and reminded everyone present that compassion would always prove stronger than manipulation. Long after the investigations ended and every hidden file was finally opened, the story people remembered most would not be about Project Genesis or the mistakes of the past. It would be about an elite Omega and a Mafia Alpha who chose to protect a child, trust each other, and build a future that no experiment, no secret, and no conspiracy could ever design for them.